Hey, happy Tuesday, everyone. This is your host, Ryan Duffy, and welcome to Pathfinder 20. We're 20 weeks into this whole podcasting thing, which is a little hard to believe, but I guess time flies when you're talking space. Today's guest is Laura Crabtree, the CEO and co-founder of Epsilon3, which is building an OS or operating system for space mission management. I'll tell you a little bit more about Laura and then welcome her onto the show in just a moment. But first, I want to share a word from Pathfinder's new sponsor. Today's episode is brought to you by Space Ventures, the planet's first space investment portal. Space Ventures has recently launched an effort to open an investment round into SpaceX, and they've received over $17.1 million in pledges from more than 1,000 investors, not to mention over $80 million in private party interest looking to add to the petition. With that kind of traction, Space Ventures is on its way to becoming the first investment portal to conduct a SpaceX allocation. If you're interested in investing in SpaceX, you can be a part of history by heading over to spaceventures.com. That's space with an ED, then pledge to invest in SpaceX. No commitments required. Check out their website, spaceventures.com, for more information. And I would just add, none of this is financial advice. Do your own research, etc., nor will disclaimers apply. Spaceventures.com. We'll also put the link in the show notes. Anyway, let me say a bit more about Laura, and we will get the show on the road. Laura kicked off her space career at Northrop Grumman before moving on to SpaceX, where she helped with the US back in the human spaceflight business. She worked in the Dragon's ops team and was on the console for the spacecraft's first flight, its first mission to the ISS, and subsequent commercial crew programs. She also worked on the Falcon 9 and Dragon recovery teams. After SpaceX, she started Epsilon3, which is building streamlined software tooling that helps space companies keep tabs and manage complex engineering, testing, and operational procedures. Epsilon's got a big customer list, and it includes Inversion, OrbitFab, Virgin Galactic, Firefly, Stoke, Stratolaunch, and Privateer, among many more. But I will stop talking and let's hear from Laura herself. Laura, welcome to the show.
Hi, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
We last saw each other in Paris. What have you been up to since you got back?
Well, I went straight from Paris to a team meetup. So we had all of our team members in the same place in Los Angeles. So I flew straight to that, and then kind of getting back into the swing of things over the last 2 weeks.
Cards on the table. I'll be recording your intro later today after we tape the show, but I've read various iterations of your bio, and I know it's going to be tough for me to pick out just a few highlights in my rundown. So I'm not going to ask you to, but long story short, cut your teeth at Northrop Grumman, working on DARPA projects and other ones that I don't know about, presumably. And then you spent quite some time as a SpaceX'er. And the highlight that I have pulled out for our purposes today is your bio says you helped put the United States back in the human spaceflight business. So that's pretty badass. I think that's a good place to kick us off. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about that?
Early on in my career at SpaceX, I started in the ops group, and I wanted to work human spaceflight for my whole life, but I didn't want to move to Houston. No offense, Houston.
No offense, Houston.
I actually really like Houston now, but at the time I was young and wanted to stay in LA. And at Northrop Grumman, they don't, at that time, and still, not really in the human spaceflight business. And there were some exciting opportunities that I saw SpaceX moving down the path to supporting human spaceflight. And supporting Dragon was kind of like a dream come true. I thought, well, I'm going to be supporting a new vehicle. And after we got that vehicle off the ground and flew it 5 or 6 times, we had the opportunity to write a proposal for commercial crew. And I'm sure you guys all know how that went. We won the proposal and got Bob and Doug to the space station. And I think the very exciting moment was when they actually captured the flag. And, we saw the flag in the video feed, and then it was like the most exciting game of capture the flag you've ever seen. That was the moment right there. And then the nail biter of the moment of the reentry.
Right.
That was a really tense moment.
I can imagine. And so that was around 2 years ago. It was 2020.
Yeah, over 2 years ago, August of 2020.
Now, today, we're recording on October 5th, and just a few hours ago, Crew 5 launched. And I mean, they're on their way to the space station literally as we're speaking. So
Yeah.
it's been pretty incredible. Did you, when you were still at SpaceX, did you anticipate that the rate of, I guess, just launches in general, but also,
Yep.
specific human spaceflight missions, that it would ramp up sort of this quickly?
Yeah, so originally we planned to have overlapping crews in training, and then we had another provider, and NASA said, well, you're only going to have one crew a year. So you're going to have a crew in training, and then a crew on station, and then a crew in training, and then on station. And then it became apparent that we would probably have a crew in training and a crew on station, maybe multiple crews in training, because that was kind of back to the original plan. And right now, SpaceX is the only provider launching humans from US soil. So they have a lot of crews in training, and I knew, just like Dragon version 1, Cargo Dragon, that it would ramp up as soon as we got through kind of the first probably 2 missions. Then the cadence would ramp up, as long as NASA had the demand, which they clearly do.
And obviously, you left SpaceX, you're no longer at SpaceX, and you've started this new company. It's not like you just started and you're coming out of stealth. You've been at it for a bit. It was 2021, right?
Well, we actually started in 2020.
Okay.
So after I left SpaceX, I took a couple weeks off. Tried to gather my
a 2-week sabbatical.
Yes, I think it was more like 4 or 5 weeks. Okay. But I was actually asked earlier by another former SpaceX'er earlier today, why didn't you just throw in the towel and call it a day and retire? And I said, well, I tried. Not really. I didn't actually try. I started interviewing at a bunch of other startups right after I left, and thought about all the other things I could do, and considered not working. I mean, I have small children, but as I told him, I got really bored, and really wanted to start something that would be transformative, that would change something in the industry that I wanted to see changed. And Epsilon3 is the culmination of a lot of years of experience and desire to do things in a different way.
And Epsilon3, in the basic premise in a nutshell, is an OS operating system for space. Is that right? And
yeah,
can you unpack a little bit about who it is that you're serving, what you're helping with, what pain points you're solving for the industry?
The operations currently is a smattering of multiple different tools. I've talked to, I don't know, hundreds of people at this point about what their tool set is for their operational design, decision-making team. And they'll go from PDF to Word documents to Excel spreadsheets to Confluence to data gathering to a GUI to you name it. There's tons of tools. And I wanted to simplify that down to what is the most necessary tools that you need to have. And out of all of those conversations came this idea for sort of an integrated platform where you could write all of your operational decision making, gather data, perform analysis, do some planning, and that is the basis of what Epsilon3 is and will be as we grow. So right now we're an integrated procedure platform for teams to write, edit, review, release, run, have historical documentation of everything that they do to their vehicles, whether it's on the ground, in testing, in space, you name it. And the use cases, I would say, people are using us anywhere from manufacturing all the way to in-flight operations on vehicles, from launch vehicles to satellites to robotic vehicles, and even extending into automotive and aviation. So a lot of different use cases, a lot of different things we support, but really just trying to take a lot of the manual processes out of what people are doing and what they have been doing traditionally. So that was really long.
No, that's good. That's good. It's good that we got that in at the top of the show. And
got it out of there.
There's plenty for me to unpack. So, Laura, why is it the case that these programs and missions, a lot of times, utilizing literally the most bleeding edge technology, it costs billions of dollars. Why why is it that any part of that would be sort of tracked, managed, overseen on like pen and paper or Microsoft Word and Excel?
So I think there's a lot of reasons. The industry is very well established, and a lot of people are adverse to change. I mean, I was once one of those people, and don't want to learn new processes, adopt new tools, because there's a hurdle to overcome when doing that. And also, a lot of engineers really like building. So a lot of people try and succeed somewhat in building internal tools. So a lot of engineers will say, well, I could build a tool that does that. Let me just do that. But what our focus is making sure that those engineers, especially at, smaller, medium, even really large companies, can focus on what their core business is, what their core expertise is, rather than learning to build software and building internal tools. So that's something that we want to provide this service to people so that they don't have to build internal tools.
I'll quote from L Crabtree on Hacker News. I was doing some research earlier this week, and I saw your post on Hacker News announcing yourself to the world. And so even if you were to try to build this tooling in-house, like it doesn't get, and this is not quoting you, but paraphrasing, but it never gets enough developer bandwidth. And then it's the first to be cast aside or deprioritized in lieu of something else, right?
It's absolutely true. And I heard that from someone today. They have internal tools that they are using, and he's asked for multiple new features and can't get traction with the internal team because they all have competing priorities. So our priority is our customers and developing for our customers. So that's kind of the differentiating factor.
Yeah. What sorts of challenges unique to space and operating as a space company would preclude, someone who is a software engineering wizard from like building this tool? Like there has to be some defensibility given your deep space background and like your domain expertise and familiarity with even like ITAR, right? Like what else would you add to that list that makes like building the software solution for space people that needs to be built by space people?
The very significant thing there is I intently understand the challenges that people go through when developing their operations. And it's somewhat of an afterthought. It's not always the last thing, but it's one of the last things. The first problem is designing your vehicle. The second problem is building your vehicle. And then the third problem is testing. And then during the final testing, you're probably thinking about what your operational platform looks like. And maybe earlier. But I want people to start thinking about it earlier, which is why when we approach potential customers, we talk to them about their testing and making sure that they have full traceability from testing all the way through. And I would say that for space, the platform is the most complex in the space use case, but there are a lot of other use cases outside of space that this could be used for as well. So really excited to dive into what those use cases look like kind of as we grow.
Yeah. I do want to actually return to that and just the generalizability of this and moving potentially into other verticals with that feature complex engineering. But I want to ask before we move on about how you would describe this to someone on the street or to friends and family, folks that aren't in the space bubble. I think in like the 2010s, in like the golden age of startups and VC and everything, there was like an Uber or Airbnb for XYZ for everything. And so are there any like metaphors that you use? Like the one that immediately comes to my mind is like Google Docs, because you have version control and like real-time updating and that sort of thing. But want to hear straight from you.
So a little bit of Google Docs, a little bit of Asana, and a little bit of GitHub, since we do kind of release process, version control. And then we also have a lot of traceability. So Google Docs, you don't have completion information. You don't have traceability. As soon as you have accepted the comment, you have to dig to find it. And those things are all sort of inherently captured and easily searchable within our platform on Epsilon3. So a little bit of each of those, but generally I like to tell friends and family that we are helping space companies organize their operations and helping them reduce potential errors and save lots of money for the time that it takes to write this in Confluence or Word. We can save multiple hours and help that people communicate and coordinate better.
Do you have any use cases from early customers or maybe your power users, or just sort of an estimate of how this can save?
Yeah, one of our largest customers actually, I'm trying to remember the exact numbers. I believe they said they were able to complete the same amount of work in 20% less time with a 15% less workforce. So, and that's one of our largest customers. So it depends. And they are using us in manufacturing and integration test and soon to be operations once they're in orbit. So.
And then another number, or kind of, I guess, something I'm trying to quantify is the cost of operation errors or mistakes on orbit. And of course, the to the uninitiated, that the most the attention grabbing, headline grabbing version of that would be some sort of tragedy with human spaceflight. But of course, the vast majority of operations and missions and whatnot are concerning satellite, spacecraft, and machines up there. So, but do you have any data either that you point to at Epsilon3 or that you have compiled yourself about the magnitude of operational mistakes over time?
Yeah, we have quantified it, and I think basically depending on if you're talking about launch failures or you're talking about miscommunications, I don't actually have data on miscommunications or failed commanding because that's going to be something internal to each customer. But kind of the way we quantify it is the more public facing failures. So the cost of worldwide space failures is in the 30 plus billion range. And obviously they're not all human error, but some can be attributed to human error, potential miscommunications. And I would like to reduce that hopefully down to zero. And I think over the course of the last 10 to 15 years, that number has been slowly going down. Mm-hmm. But we are opening ourselves up to potential failure if we don't use really good tools and have some manual processes. So taking some of the manual processes away helps with potential error reduction.
Based on what you can glean from the industry and your experience in the industry, is it ever just a communications issue between team or like cultural ownership problem, that sort of thing?
I think it could be, but I believe this industry is filled with really wonderful humans that very, very feel very strongly about what they're doing.
Yeah.
And, I don't think that there's ever really cultural issues. I think sometimes it's just process or somebody missed something. It's always like, measure twice, cut once.
Yeah.
Some of the things of that nature. So a lot of times in my past life, it would be, type a command in, verify the command, have somebody else verify the command, and then send it. Well, in Epsilon3, you could have the command already verified by the person reviewing your procedure and send it straight from Epsilon3 rather than having to copy and paste or move it into the right place. Or if you had a script, that script could have already been checked. So it's some of those kind of things that you can reduce in future operations.
I'm struck by the amount of startups or companies that I've spoken to recently who, like yourself, departed one of the big commercial space players or new space players and thought about some sort of tooling or service and just assumed that it existed. And then you realized it didn't exist. And then you were like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to build a company around this and try to scale this up. How gradual or sudden was that realization I guess, in the sabbatical or in the sort of intervening months before starting this?
In the time between when I left SpaceX and when I started this, there was always a nagging in the back of my mind that, I had the right type of experience to start something like this, and that no one else would want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know anyone else who would want to do what I'm doing, but I love it and I'm really excited about it. And it was sort of gradual, but I think it was just always there.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at all of the different players in the space industry, I felt that many of them needed what we were going to build. And I was proven right by a lot of kind of, not interviews, but just chatting with a bunch of people in the industry and telling them what I wanted to build. And then it became really clear that I needed to go do it.
It's increasingly common, but it's still a bit rare, I would say, to encounter a pure play like space software startup that's thriving. And do you think that is part of the reason why you have succeeded? And to your point, you didn't really see anyone else building it, just because people might gravitate towards like the hardware and the more hands-on, as I've heard you say in an interview, like the sexy side of space.
Yeah. Well, I've always been in the unsexy side. So, you'll see me in the back of mission control or not there at all. And I was doing a lot of training and preparation and, working on tooling. And so I always felt like that was kind of my place to be, in the background, in the non-sexy side of things. Although software is pretty sexy in its own right.
And it's sleek.
An elegant software solution solves so many problems.
Right.
And I think I learned that over the course of my years at SpaceX. I started at SpaceX not having a love for software, and I had some coworkers early on when we were developing our early simulations, and we were developing our early telemetry storage and retrieval tool, where I developed this just deep-seated love for very elegant software solutions. Our early simulations, I would do command line prompt starting everything, command line prompt perform actions. And, years later, it's now a web GUI where you just click go. And that transition over the course of multiple years brought me so much happiness. It's hard to express because not only did I not have to train people on really complex software, but I saved myself tons of time. At one point during my master's degree, I was working at SpaceX and finishing my master's degree, and I was doing I was working on a class about systems engineering and kind of efficient processes, and they asked me to analyze a process. So I thought, well, what better thing to do than analyze a process that's currently giving me a lot of headache? Mm-hmm. So I looked at how much time I was spending on this process, and it was something like 20 to 30 hours a week. And I wasn't working 40 hours a week, but if I could save myself 10 or 15 hours a week to go do other things, wouldn't that be a welcome change? And I did over the course of the next 3 to 6 months after I finished that class, and I was so much happier.
I think that's a central part of the story for automation and software, is freeing up the time to focus on the more productive tasks.
Yeah.
So we are going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Innovation requires early stage funding, but space startups don't have many options. Space Ventures is our world's first space investment portal, offering direct access to investment deals and letting you back innovative space startups. Space Ventures has launched an effort to open an investment round into SpaceX. Over 1,000 investors have pledged to invest $17.1 million so far. The more investors pledge, the stronger the chances for SpaceX to conduct a community round on Space Ventures. You can be among the first retail investors to have the opportunity to invest in SpaceX by heading to their website and pledging to invest. No commitment required. Check out their website, spaceventures.com, for more information.
I don't want to dwell on this too much and take you back to the days of, going around into the boardroom and pitching investors, but I'm sure you got this question, and it's an important one. And I think, the success and traction of your business so far tells us the answer to it, but I still want to ask it. Why, it might have been a counterintuitive bet to think that like the space vertical was large enough to support its own tooling like this. When you first struck out to build this, and we're building your MVP, talking to potential users, doing market research, that sort of thing, was that a question that you encountered a lot? Like, is the space industry big enough for this kind of company? And then a second, knock-on question to that would be, is this business venture scalable? And again, you've raised venture. Why don't let's separate into two? And I just want to hear your spiel on why the space industry. And we would agree at Payload.
You guys better agree.
Yeah, we're partial to that view as well. But for anyone on the fence who's listening,
I think over the last 10 years, let's just say in 2010, there was no real commercial spaceflight business. There were no startups. There were a couple of major players, major defense primes. And over the last 10 years, that has escalated to now thousands and thousands of startups in the space industry. And if you want to solve a problem for the space industry, solve a problem that everyone has, and that's what we're doing. We're solving a problem that we know most, if not everyone, has it. And originally, when pitching investors, I really only talked about the space industry and things I knew to be true about the industry, things I knew to be true from people I had talked to. And just from that, we got to venture scale potential business. Mm-hmm. And now looking at the potential that we have in other verticals, other industries, it gets to be even more large of a potential market size.
Big TAM.
Yeah. And then lastly, in my experience, either an investor believes that the space industry is important and growing, or they don't. I can't convince someone of something that I see that they don't see, because it's either you believe it or you don't. Mm-hmm. And so for us, we had to talk to the right people to make sure that they believed the things we believed to be true about the industry that we're serving, or at least the first industry we're serving. And those are the early investors that we found, and they've been really supportive kind of from the get-go for the last year and a half.
Yeah. And you have a lot of customers, so.
We have the coolest customers.
What's the typical profile? We don't have to, I'm sure a lot of them you can't say. Some of them are on your website. We'll put that in the show notes and maybe like take a screenshot. But what's like the typical profile of your customer? And you can use really any metric you choose in terms of like headcount, revenue, like missions, anything.
Yeah. So it really depends on if the customer's building hardware. Okay. We have some customers that are purely software based, which is also really awesome. But generally speaking, the customer has to be past the design phase and either building, testing, or operating hardware. And that's the only differentiating factor. If you're still in the design phase, you probably aren't going to be needing Epsilon3. But if you are building and testing is looming, you probably want to use Epsilon3. It will make your life easier. And so the size of the company doesn't really matter. The only thing with different sizes of companies is different lead times for decision making.
Yeah.
So it's obviously harder to get to the decision maker in a really large company. And so it takes a little bit more time for us to talk to them and talk them through what the platform can do for them. So,
is it primarily satellites as opposed to launch? Or is that an unfair categorization?
Everything. We support everything. So we've got a number of launch vehicles. We've got a couple of robotic vehicles. We've got an underwater robotic vehicle, which is really
awesome.
cool.
Love
and
that.
we're also supporting satellites. So satellite ground testing, satellite in-flight operations. So it kind of runs the gambit of all the different pieces of space, all the way to human spaceflight.
Are you, to what extent does this platform rely on automation? I'm trying my hardest to avoid saying like ML, machine learning and AI, but do you already support that on the platform and in terms of like learning, looking for anomalies? I'm not sure exactly what sort of vocab you would use, but, or do you have it in the roadmap?
So we do some analysis on data gathered. We don't have predictive tools yet, but that's something that a couple members of our team, if you want to stay away from buzzwords, I'm okay with it, but do have machine learning
totally
experience and are really excited about building sort of some more predictive capabilities in Epsilon3. But right now, it's more on the analysis, post-processing, data gathering side that we're using those skills.
Yeah, no. As a startup founder, you want to say machine learning and AI as much as you can.
I try to stay away from buzzwords also.
Okay,
but
well, that's good. That's good.
Nobody knows what that means to you. It might mean something different to you than it does to me.
True. I think I saw a meme, like, actually the meme crops up like every 6 months, but it's like one person's linear regression is another person's machine learning.
Yeah.
But we are not here for memes. So who?
Maybe we are.
Maybe we are. I moonlight as a meme creator, so stay tuned. Yeah, stay tuned. I'll design a custom meme for this episode. I'll have to think about it a bit, but we've got time. Okay. Who is your biggest competitor? Is it nobody? And is it other independent companies or softwares, or is it in-house tooling?
So I would say, depending on the customer, our biggest competitor is no change. So move forward with status quo, or build internally.
Okay.
And I would say status quo, you're as you grow, you're going to run into bigger and bigger problems. And as you build internally, you're going to spend more and more money. Mm-hmm. So if I can provide you with a 90% solution and over time get you to the 95% solution and save you tons of money, or you could build the 100% solution and it doesn't scale, then I know what I would pick, but
right.
I'm obviously a little bit biased.
Right. Plus, there is a certain size of the company in terms of like headcount and resources, and I'm sure many of the organizations you're working along with, in addition to the issues discussed earlier, like this being deprioritized and or there just not being enough resources, like a lot of companies just aren't at the scale where they could invest in something like this.
I mean, if you only have 50 people, you don't want to put 5 people on developing a tool for later stage operations. You'd probably want to put like 1 or 2 software engineers on flight software, and then 1 or 2 on like post-processing, data analysis, and then we could help you in the interim, in the middle of those 2 things, right?
What are some of the guardrails around how you built your tech stack, or who you could be selling to? Those sorts of considerations that may not have to be that other of your, let's say, like Y Combinator cohort peers. Perfect segue for my next question, which now you know what it'll be about, but that they don't have to consider. There's a 4-letter word that I'm thinking of.
Oh yeah, I'm thinking of that word too. So I would say security and reliability are paramount to our business. And we had to design the Epsilon3 platform from the get-go on the GovCloud, from AWS GovCloud, for ITAR purposes.
Yeah.
And I think that's the 4-letter acronym.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Bingo.
And then, in addition, there are more secure clouds. We had to design our application to not only be able to be hosted in the cloud, but to also be deployed on site and deployed in more secure environments. So these are a lot of the early design decisions we made with how we thought about our tech stack were related to what we knew to be true in the industry, which is somebody is going to need on-prem services, somebody is going to need a more secure cloud, and everybody needs ITAR security. So those are some of the things that we've done. And we've also done a lot in addition to those items on the security and reliability standpoint.
Makes sense. Next question, knew it was coming. Why go to Y Combinator? And I'm just particularly fascinated, and because it is an increasing phenomenon, I would say, for space companies, which is really exciting.
That's cool.
Yeah, I want to hear from y'all.
Let's see, I think there were maybe 10 space companies in Y Combinator when we were there. And I'm going to be honest, because I'm always a very honest person.
We love that. Love that here, Pathfinder.
I did not know what Y Combinator was until the week before we applied, and I'm sorry to our group partners for saying that, but I didn't know. I didn't know anything about startups, and I knew even less about starting and running a business.
Right.
And I needed to learn how to run a business. I needed to learn how to hire. I needed to learn how to raise money. And I went to Y Combinator to learn all of the things that I didn't know about how Epsilon3 could change the face of the things I wanted to change in the space industry. So I learned about business, I learned about hiring, I learned about fundraising, I learned about, managing the team, and a lot of other really important things.
What was your biggest takeaway, or like most non-obvious learning from Y Combinator? As you said, it's like the full stack of building and scaling a startup, but especially since you weren't super familiar with it going in, I'm curious what like the biggest surprise or takeaway for you was.
So Y Combinator stresses that you should learn from your customers and learn from your users. And while that might sound intuitive, what tends to happen with building is that you want to build the perfect thing from the get-go. And the biggest takeaway for us is output something that solves the problem, but might not be pretty, might not be perfect, and let your users tell you what they like and don't like about it to then make it more perfect in the next iteration. So we are basically running the SpaceX model, which is iterative engineering from user feedback to make something that meets and exceeds our users' expectations.
Yeah.
And I want to put out perfect things all the time, but I would rather put out a perfect thing on a second revision than put out something I think is perfect that I spent tons of time on for the first revision just to then redesign it and spend tons more time on it.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Ship early and ship often, right?
Yes, exactly.
On the topic of customers, how do you acquire new ones? I think, we are in unison. I agree with the premise that the space industry is massively growing, and there are all of these new startups, but in a lot of ways, they're still, it's still old fashioned, I would say. And like, it's very relationships driven, and people go from like company to company, and it seems that a lot, everyone kind of at a certain level of seniority, like everyone just kind of knows everyone. So is word of mouth really powerful, or is, your experience and your co-founders and that of your team, like, how are you acquiring new users?
That's a lot of questions in one. So
we can take it step by step.
Yeah, so we've seen a lot of growth in our current customers. Once the platform is successful for a small group of people, then they want to tell their friends to come onto the platform and do what they're doing and convert their Excel spreadsheets to Epsilon3. So that's one way we get new users, is word of mouth within a company. As you noted, the space industry is growing, is a large industry, but is relatively small with leadership and personnel. So we do know what each other is doing or have heard of each other. And so it's like talking to people about what their current processes are and understanding if this might be something that could solve a problem for them. I don't go in with, hey, I want to sell you this thing. I think it could solve problems. we all know how that goes. Like, let me solve a problem that I don't know you even have.
Right.
I want to know and understand the user. I want to know and understand their use case and know if this is a problem. Otherwise, I am just wanting to help and connect them with other people that might solve other problems for them, and kind of continue the relationship going, because I love this industry. I mean, I think you know that already, but this is like my heart and my family, and everything in my being wants to be contributing to the space industry, and so that's part of why I'm doing what I'm doing.
So 2 more forward-looking questions on the business strategy, and then we'll wrap with some shorter questions. But the first one is vertical in nature, and so we're staying within the space industry. Do you anticipate? And I saw again on my Hacker News due diligence, I saw this question from our friend Jeff Cruzy. So not gonna try and steal it, but he said that is this like a Trojan horse in terms of starting with your current set of tooling and then eventually expanding into a bunch of other services, tools, applications, what have you, for the space industry. Is that on the roadmap? Is that a good read? Thoughts?
Yeah, there are a lot of other things I want to build for the industry in line with our current tool. And I think that builds out everything I would want to see change in how we operate, how we think about operations, some of the operator efficiencies that I want to see. So yeah, I think Jeff is right in that I have a lot of other ideas of things I want to build. And then similarly on the kind of growth side, we've dabbled into how this could apply to lots of other verticals. And we are growing the team, but I'll be the first one to tell you, my team's not quite big enough to support all the verticals that we want to go into.
Right.
But we will get there.
Yeah.
And we're definitely growing and kind of mastering our first vertical and starting to do some fact finding and starting to support other verticals, like you noted earlier. We do have customers in other verticals, and those customers are helping us with, what does the rest of the vertical that you operate in need, want, and how could we support them as well? Right.
Well, that was a great read, because the second part of that question was going to be about going horizontally, and I don't know. I would imagine that by starting with space, you're kind of taking on the final boss, and that's
we take on the hardest problem first.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way of going about and doing things. Are there any other fun applications that you would highlight, or applications, operations, missions, whatever that you're supporting? So of course there's a wide range of space and on orbit applications. Yeah. You mentioned a underwater robot, and I think I've heard you say hypersonics before. Anything else you would highlight?
Well, one of our customers launched their first orbital flight last week.
Oh, wow.
That was really amazing, and we're really excited to be supporting them. So I think you know them well also.
Yeah. Well, congrats to them, and congrats to you. Now we
that one we didn't mention the name. Do you know the name? Obviously, right?
You got me. You literally, I don't remember, not off the top of my head.
Firefly.
Oh, Firefly. Okay. Yeah. Oh, I should have known that. This is embarrassing. Well, shout out.
I'm kidding.
Shout out to Firefly for over the weekend. Making it to orbit and kicking off the new race of the early 2020s with the 1-ton rockets. Will be interesting.
The new launch vehicle.
Yeah. So switching gears a bit, this is always a fun way to wrap the show. Mm-hmm. And I want to tailor this too, because you have all this experience and you have all this visibility too into the space industry. So what is your most contrarian take most contrarian view or hottest take on the future of the space industry? And this can go in a lot of directions, but an uncommonly held view.
I don't know if it's uncommon, but I don't know about people going to the moon again. I think I would rather go to Mars and explore Mars. But this is a very SpaceX-y view, so there you have it.
I like that. I have a picture of the moon right there. But
Yeah.
I hope I can add another one right below, with
Of Mars.
someone on Mars. Yeah,
Yeah.
be a nice
Yeah.
pair of visuals. What's the what's the most overhyped aspect of space? And I suppose that could dovetail with the last answer and maybe humans going to the moon, but the most overhyped and most underhyped about any part of the space economy.
Well, launch is always we talked about sexy earlier. Launch is the sexiest part. And I think we talk about launch and, there's rockets and sheer power, but I think that the most underhyped maybe is the hardest, which I'm partial to this, which is rendezvous, in-flight service, in-orbit servicing. I think those are going to get hyped up more and more as some of those new vehicles come online.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, we've talked about eventually building databases for various things, and I think that we should build one for tugs, orbital transfer vehicles, and all of that before rockets, because rockets just always grab the most attention. It's understandable. Yeah, yeah.
I understand why everybody likes rockets because you can see it, you can feel it, you can hear it, but kind of the elegance of what people are doing in space is really
yeah. Well, and just we're humans, and things that are out of sight and out of mind inherently won't grab someone's attention as much. But on the topic of out of sight, out of mind, are there any next gen like business models or technologies? And so this could be anything among what you've just listed, robotic servicers, tugs, debris removal, that sort of thing. Are there any of those technologies or businesses that you would point to that you think are poised to break out sooner than expected?
I think we have to wait for the technology to sort of mature a little bit.
Are you supporting any of those types of missions? I would guess yes. I mean, they're not necessarily like on orbit and like hardware's flying right now, but they're in the pipeline. Are. Gotcha. Awesome. Well, we'll check back in in a couple of years. The second to last question is who inspired you to go in space? And maybe it wasn't to who. I know you were early from a very young age, and I'm sure you can, you can't even count the amount of shuttle launches that you watched on both hands. But so if it wasn't a specific person, it was more just the inherent human fascination with space. Is there a particular role model that you had, going through school and starting out in aerospace?
Yeah, I think it was my first grade teacher, if I'm being completely honest. My first grade teacher recognized that math and science were my thing. And she told my mom at like the ripe old age of 6 that I needed to be in the hardest school possible or I'd get into trouble. And my mom put me into a school that was very math science focused, and I learned all about space. So it was kind of that catalyst of somebody recognized really early on that I had the capability to learn and do things kind of outside of the normal school prescription. And that sort of kicked off my love of science, which kicked off my love of fire and my love of space. I mean, I also very much like fire and rockets and things of that nature.
Yeah.
And the space element came a couple years later when I was in 3rd grade.
Love it. That's I think that's
that's just the weirdest question. Like I knew what I wanted to do when I was 8.
That's a perfect answer. Don't sleep on teachers. Last question. I think I told you I was going to ask you about it first, but Epsilon3. What's the story behind Epsilon3, the name?
Oh, so we are a collection of nerds. I mean, we all like self-describe ourselves as pretty nerdy. And I don't know if you watched Star Trek, Star Wars, Babylon 5, any of the things when you were growing up, but I watched all of them with my dad. And we wanted to have a space focused name without making it so overtly space. And Babylon 5 has a planet in there called Epsilon3. And so it's sort of an homage to space. And with the Epsilon and the 3 kind of brings together all the nerdy factors that we really wanted to embody.
Love it. Love it. Well, that was my Trojan horse, or two birds in one stone, or two birds, one stone question, because I knew that backstory in broad strokes. That's a plug though, because I often ask about guest favorite sci-fi, and that's I'll link to it for those who are not aware. It's an American space opera series. That's why.
Now it's not as good as it was then, but it is really good.
Wow.
Although I did watch Star Trek religiously when I was really little with my dad.
Yeah, I don't think you are alone on that one. But I'll close this one out with a nod to your name. The Babylon space station, Babylon 5, which was built around Epsilon3, right? In this space show, it was built in 2256. So here is to hoping that Epsilon3 is surviving and thriving in 2056.
Amazing.
Thanks for coming on the show, Laura.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
All right, everyone, that is a wrap for Pathfinder 0020. If you enjoyed this conversation, leave us a rating and review on your podcast player of choice, or YouTube if in the event you're watching this. Pathfinder is brought to you by Payload, and while we have designs on becoming the biggest space content company in the galaxy, today we publish Pathfinder, Payload, and Parallax. You can subscribe to the other media properties using the links in the show notes. I'm Ryan Duffy signing off, and I will see you back here next week.